so we're on to trend number 3. And this one, I think, is a big buzzword right now. You hear a little bit about it when you talk about Web 2.0 or Web 3.0 technology, but it's collaboration. So I think what people are looking for in project management software right now is not just your traditional data input of a single project and you're working in Microsoft Project, but they want to see more collaborative tools amongst team members. And so this is ways for the team members to really work together, share information, build things collectively. Sharing lessons learned from past projects is a big part of this. So how do you take the knowledge that you have, that's one of those intangibles that we talked about earlier, and learn from it so that you're applying this information to your future projects? And this is kind of the idea around collaboration. So one of the things that we do in WorkLens is that we have a wiki tool that allows project team members to collaborate on process, lessons learned. You can even use this for requirements. So one of the things I'm going to talk about later is Agile and how the Agile methodology can be supported, and I think that collaboration is a big part of that. Yes?
So do you offer the wiki tool, how do you integrate with existing platforms, like SharePoint?
Yeah, we do integrate with SharePoint. So a lot of organizations are using SharePoint right now. I think it's getting really popular in terms of kind of how easy it is to stand it up and start using it. So certainly that is an integration point for us if you're already using SharePoint. We have a lot of customers who use SharePoint. There's a lot of great things about it that, that make it worthwhile to integrate with.
Just a curiosity question. How do you circumvent the contracting rules? When you develop something over here, how do you create that library over here? Because you can't use the funds for here to create a library that you're going to use later on.
I'm not sure I understand exactly the question.
If you're in the type of work that I do, if I'm under contract, everything in that contract is one package.
Yep.
If I decide to create libraries off of that by having people create wikis and stuff like that, that can't be billed to this contract. So how do you do that? And then how do you take advantage of those libraries?
I'm not quite sure I'm understanding exactly the question, but maybe I can follow up with you.
I'm happy to follow up with you because
Okay.
I'd like to understand how that's done.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, it's a great idea. It's a great idea that if you can do it, but
some places, how they get around it is that they have overall they built the architecture that has those components like.
But it still has to be somehow built into the
Right,
contract.
so
If you don't know it on the forefront of the contract, you can't do it.
It's a separate project that has a framework that has the library components, and then each project pays a fee on one, so that you're only charging on your component of it. So you still keep it separated, but the overall library is on a separate project that paid to build that up.
Right, but I got people working on, here's my dilemma. I have people working on a contract that's paid by the government, and then I allow them to do that wiki work.
Right.
I have to get a different charge number to do that.
Exactly. So that's why I was saying it's easier if you keep it on SharePoint and then you pay have a wiki on your individual project. You don't have that overlap.
But then that library becomes a capital investment to the company.
Right.
Or their knowledge base or whatever.
Right.
Okay, well, I'll follow up with you and we can talk about it a little bit afterwards to make sure I understand the question. So this is one example of collaboration. Other ideas are document collaboration, being able to have version control and collaboration around the documents that you're using, workflows, threaded note discussions, so all of these different tools that help team members work better together. A lot of what we see today is there's more virtual teams than we used to have. So collaboration is a big part of trying to make virtual teams work more effectively together. All right, so trend number 4, we're almost halfway there. On-demand offerings. So I talked about these virtual teams. So one of the things that's great about the on-demand offerings is that you can access these from anywhere. All you need is an internet browser. You hear people talking about getting services from the cloud. And that's really all about being able to access these services without having to install, download, set up servers, have any infrastructure for them at all. So it really makes, it's like a single click, one-stop shop for what you need. This on-demand model for services we think is really growing in this industry. It gives organizations a more cost-effective way to add and augment to their service offerings. So let's say that you have an organization who makes donuts. They might not know a lot about project management, but they know a lot about making donuts, and they do a great job with it. By outsourcing some of the services for their project management, they can focus on what they do well, donuts. The service offering can focus on what they do well, project management, and together they can share the information to make better decisions. So that's what the on-demand services are really all about.
Do you see on-demand services as opening, I mean, specifically Metier, opening up a lot of, especially international markets that
Yeah.
government open for, because of the infrastructure requirement, you know, the price of entry
Is much higher, yeah, absolutely. When we started offering, when we started 10 years ago, our model was an ASP model, and there was no industry for it. Nobody was biting, and so we moved to the traditional on-premise delivery method. And then about maybe 2 years ago, we saw that this on-demand was taking off again, and so we started offering it again, and that's when we first started seeing a real international interest. So we do have international customers now. We implement the software in 1 to 2 weeks for them, and they're up and running. So it's really interesting. I think it definitely lowers the barriers to entry, and I think that it's a great thing for the market because it opens up a whole new set of tools and software and services that before people really weren't looking at or didn't think were available to them. So I think it raises the level of quality of what people can really get.
Slide 4, I guess number 4, you have cloud. Are you referring to cloud computing, the buzzword that's going around that's not so defined?
Yeah, I mean a little bit. I mean just the concept of the cloud computing, obviously, and just the concept of the on-demand, software itself. Yes?
So really, this kind of is, CFOs must love this, because this is kind of like leasing a car. Every dollar that's spent can be billed directly to that project, and then you move on to the next one and then bill another increment.
Exactly. I mean, it's extremely transparent in terms of how you see the direct correlation between I have 5 team members who are supporting this project, I buy 5 licenses, they access the software, and it's done. So it's a really simple licensing model, and also there's very little risk. It's a month-to-month subscription typically, so you can use it for the length of a project. If the project ends and you don't need it any longer, you can stop, so you don't have to invest in the infrastructure and things like that that would be required in a traditional delivery method.
You can't use subscription unless you give me credit for it.
Okay. Trend number 5 is what we call taxonomy. So this is really taking the data within an organization and creating a classification system. So if you think about taxonomy, you might think about, I like to think about it as a big filing system. And you have different drawers in the filing system, you have different folders within those drawers, and it's a really way to classify the data that you're collecting. So a lot of people, when they're talking about PPM tools, one of their biggest gripes with PPM tools is garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have good data, you can't make good decisions off of it, and a tool is not valuable. So what the taxonomy idea strives to do is to give you more of a data-driven approach to the PPM and to really conditioning the data before you get it into the system and before you're looking at reports and making decisions off of it. So let me go to this example here. This is how we apply taxonomy within our system. And if you look at the top of the screen there, you'll see different tabs. And this is what we call the backbone of the taxonomy, or the main classification system. So you're looking at a portfolio, and then you're thinking about what are all of the different components within that portfolio. And so in this example,